Howdy.
Hello.
um, I'm a,
Okay.
I'm a little congested, so
All right.
I'll have you kind of do today. Yeah, it's my allergies kicking my
Mm-hmm.
ass right now. So,
Yep. That
um,
time of year.
yeah, but I should be okay for the for the
All
show.
right. So I guess recap the World Series so far. And
Yeah, I mean, we'll recap what we've seen so far, and then obviously what we have for tonight.
yep. I cannot believe they lost the game that way.
Yeah, I got I got thoughts.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Um,
So we can do that. Um.
And we could also talk. Well, actually, you know what? Do you want to save that, like, save the best for last, and just kind of like anything else really just around baseball? Just a kind of quickly, because
Yeah.
that kind of stuff we can kind of do first. We can kind of just get some of that stuff out of the way early. Um,
Mhm.
like kind of the calendar, kind of what's expected after, with the season being done tonight, regardless in terms of what happens, kind of what's on the menu next.
Mhm.
Uh, and
We
then
we
kinda
can
like an
all.
early preview of, like, the off season.
I mean, we can also just highlight the new managers who've been hired
Yeah,
by
we can do
some
that.
teams.
Yeah, we could go really quickly into that, kind of think about what we think about those. I know obviously the Twins got theirs, the Nationals got theirs. Uh,
Giants, Angels, Orioles,
yeah.
and
Oh,
Rangers.
wow. I didn't know that.
But the
You
Orioles?
you know who Yorvis Medina was? You ever heard of that name before?
Not really.
I'll show you what a picture of him.
Dead after a heart attack. Oh, jeez.
Yeah, it was while driving.
Oh, that's awful.
Yeah, brutal. He was former Seattle and Cubs pitcher at the age of 37. He was poorly suffered a heart attack while driving in his home country while leading to a car crash. Um, Local media claimed in Nakwanga, I don't know. I'm sorry. And that Medina smashed into several parked cars after his medical emergency behind the wheel. Oh wow, that's brutal. I mean, we don't really have to get into it because I don't think it's a really well-known name, but
Hmm.
that's
Well,
brutal.
we can just offer quick condolences to his
Yeah,
family.
we can do that. And the Giants got Tony Vitello, like college
Yeah,
coach.
I brought that up. We can do that.
So we'll get into that stuff really, really quick, and then obviously we'll get into the grand finale at the end.
Okay, so we're doing manager hirings. Then we're gonna
Oh,
do
the update about Terra Skubal. Do you hear about that? The contract? How?
but the fact that they're not gonna, in all likelihood, they're not gonna trade him this off season.
Well, no, it's honestly potentially the opposite. Heyman was reporting in the New York Post that the overall, like, the sides essentially were kind of apart. That
Hmm.
that that number is a lot higher now than what it was before.
Oh, all
So
right.
it's honestly gotten worse. So we can, if we want to kind of quickly get into that really quick, but obviously we want to make sure we have enough time for the best.
All right. All right.
All right,
So,
let me just get ready.
oh wait, are we recording?
Hmm?
Are we recording?
Well, Nick put out the starting time for this. I was with him last night.
Well, I'm looking up. I'm looking up here on the top left, and the timer's going on for like 19 minutes 8 seconds. I think we're already recording.
Okay. Well,
I guess everyone heard what we were talking about for this episode, or what we're going to be talking about for this episode. So, yeah, I think we're recording. So, hello everybody. Kind of an awkward way to begin this episode. This is episode
we're
number
live. We're live.
episode number 89 of Hitting for the Cycle. Take that as a behind the scenes preview of what goes on before our episodes.
Hmm.
So, of course, that's Ben Cruz. He's congested. I'm Ryan Tui.
Mm.
I'm tired. but we're gonna make this work.
Yeah.
So yeah, obviously, happy belated Halloween to everybody.
Yep.
Hope everybody had a safe and enjoyable Halloween. Hope everybody dressed crazily as best as possible. Um, the Major League Baseball season is down to one last day, one last game. The world champions for 2025 are going to be decided tonight. We will get into that. But first, before we get into all of this, Ben, how are you doing besides being congested?
Well, yeah, I'm pretty congested right now. The October allergies, I was knocking on wood that I was gonna get free without the whole month, and of course, it kicked my ass this week. But um, outside of that, not too bad. Celtics are playing a lot better, so I'm happy about that. Bruins are kicking their stride a little bit as recently, and yeah, I'm excited for this game tonight. Really, really excited for this game tonight.
Yeah, it's should be a good one. I mean, last night's game was pretty wild. We've had some wild games in this World Series, and it can go either way. I know I've said that a lot of the time, but truly, I mean, this series has been evenly matched.
It
Pretty much.
deserves a game 7. I
Yeah.
I know obviously kind of the controversy, of course, what happened last night, but regardless of the fact that I think many baseball fans, like we talked about Ryan last week, that we could be sitting here like today specifically and talking specifically about for the baseball season to finish on a game 7, which is the first time since 2019. So I think that that's pretty much what baseball fans want, and they get to get their treat from Halloween weekend.
hmm And while it's obviously a bummer that neither of our teams are in this fall classic, at least we don't have to worry about having a panic attack or our heart
Yeah,
racing for a game
that's the
7
bonus.
because game
Yep.
sevens, while they're certainly fun, they're also very dramatic, and they definitely can cause anxiety for the fans of the teams who are involved. So, at least that's not us. But yep, one team is going to be happy, one team's going to be heartbroken at the end of the evening. Which team will that be? We'll go into more detail about that once we come around to that subject. But before we do that, we want to catch everybody up a little bit on what's happened elsewhere around the league this offseason. And there have been several new managerial hires around Major League Baseball. So among them are from the San Francisco Giants. Tony Vitello, he's going to be making the jump from college coaching. He was the head coach at the University of Tennessee, and he's going to be making the leap from there to San Francisco. Going to be the new manager of the San Francisco Giants. I don't really know too much about Tony Vitello, to be perfectly honest with you, but he's mostly coached in college. He led Tennessee to the national championship in 2024. He's been involved in the SEC regular season champion. He was the SEC regular season champion in 2022 and 2025. And he led Tennessee to the SEC tournament championship in 2022 and 2024. And he has several Coach of the Year accolades to add to his resume. And he's the first college manager to take the job of a major league manager in history. So the fact that he's not even going to the minors at all, he's going straight from college to Major League Baseball. That's something. That's historic. And we'll see how that shapes up. Tony Vitello, he is 47 years old, and he's a native of St. Louis, Missouri. So yeah, we'll see how it goes. Like I said, I really don't know much. I really don't know anything about this guy. The Giants obviously see something in him. Maybe they see a guy who can relate to players a little easier than Bob Melvin. But Ben, what'd you make of this move?
Yeah, it's actually funny because shout out to one of my guys from my other podcast I do. He used to work for the Oakland Athletics baseball team, and he has a couple inside scoop sources, essentially kind of from people, and he basically kind of told me, legitimately the night before this breaking happened, that he heard from an actual source that the Giants were going to hire this specific guy that they're kind of in the rumblings with. So shout out to that guy, whoever the hell that guy was. That was a source because he clearly was right, and he's had some right things in the past before with some other things. But yeah, from what I just know, Ryan is he's completely energetic. There's a lot of videos out there that kind of from the College World Series of him just being just crazy, kind of a different kind of vibe than kind of a regular, you know, regular kind of old fashioned type of manager, kind of the way that they just kind of go and do their business. But um, I think this could be very, very interesting for the Giants. You know, they obviously kind of needed some fresh blood, with their team. You know, they obviously had a very, very underwhelming second half of this year's season after getting Rafael Devers from my team. We don't have to obviously talk about that, but yeah, I mean, just we'll see. We'll see. I mean, there's not really a lot of college coaches that tend to do very well going over to the major leagues, but of course, there are, of course, some times where you can kind of find a dime in the rough. So, yeah, hopefully he does well. And, you know, I think we'll see what happens.
Yeah, well, he's going to be entering one of the toughest divisions to manage in, one that's been dominated for years by Dave Roberts and the LA Dodgers. And obviously, you have another veteran manager in Torey Lovolo with the Arizona Diamondbacks. So it's going to be a challenge, no doubt about it. But based on the way that you described him, I have no doubt that he's up for the challenge, and we'll see if he's able to get the Giants back to the postseason for the first time since 2021. And yeah. So
We'll also see
2012.
too, what the Giants' offseason approach is now. Obviously, not getting him. Typically, when you bring a manager in, the front office also typically has specifically some guys that they kind of want to bring in. You know, with a guy like that. For instance, obviously with Alex Bregman, obviously coming in as a Red Sox, one of the biggest reasons was obviously the ties to Alex Cora. You know, obviously we'll kind of see what happens with the Giants.
Mhm. So Vitale is now with the Giants. The Angels have hired a new manager, and it's longtime Major League catcher Kurt Suzuki, who had a stint, I believe, with the Angels at one point in his career. I
Mm,
think he did. Um, Ron Washington has officially retired from Major League Baseball, so congratulations to Ron
yeah.
Washington on a very long career in
Mhm.
baseball. Was a third base coach for many years with the Oakland A's. Was the manager with the Texas Rangers, led them to back-to-back World Series appearances in 10 and 11. Was a third base coach for the Braves for a while. Was a member of the 21 Atlanta Braves World Championship, and then obviously went to the Angels. I believe beginning in 24. I think he was only there for about 2 years. He missed a little bit of this season, obviously with the health issue that we discussed. But yeah, Kurt Suzuki is now going to be joining the Angels. Another guy in his first managerial role. Suzuki, in my opinion, doesn't have a lot of pressure on him. The Angels have been in this never-ending rebuild for over a decade now. So
Yeah.
I think Suzuki is going to just, kind of just. I think the Angels are just going to let him sink or swim, just see what he's able to do. The Angels obviously are severely lacking talent on that major league roster. They have a lot of young players, and some of them certainly have promise, if you ask me. And the Angels don't. And the Angels do have some guys. Mike Trout obviously is still there, but he's obviously not what he used to be. But
Mhm.
the Angels, Zach Neto, very very good baseball player.
Yep.
Um, Seanwell, is he still there? I think.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Yep.
Sean,
He's one of their building blocks over there.
Joe Adell.
Yep.
Depending on if the Angels
Decent
decide.
season last year.
Yeah, so there's talent there. So we'll see if Suzuki's able to help these guys reach greater things or reach their full potential. But the Angels really need to do some work on that rotation, and they really need to do some work in that bullpen as well. And the offense too. The Angels led all Major League Baseball in strikeouts, so they really need a change in philosophy. They really need to clean house, I think, with that coaching staff, and they really just need to start from the ground up again. Unfortunately, if you ask me. So,
Yeah.
what do you make of this move?
Yeah, unfortunately, I mean, credit to Suzuki. I hope he does well, but this is just kind of I feel like another manager that's going to kind of come in and just kind of get thrown in the fire a little bit because it's more the fact is the way they need to have a change specifically in their front office, right? This has been just kind of a team that, I mean, obviously, like you mentioned with Trout, right? Trout's obviously not the same guy he once was. Obviously, he actually played a lot more last this past year, but of course, his numbers definitely have diminished. Um, and then obviously you got like Anthony Rendon, who obviously just cannot stand the field, one of the worst contracts I think the Angels are going to be throwing out in their franchise. And then obviously, they have a couple of guys that are actually pretty solid players. Guy like Luis Rengifo, guy like Zach Neto, Joe Adell obviously had some signs last year. But like you mentioned, right? I mean, the rotation specifically is a mess. Granted, yes, you obviously added a guy like Yusei Kikuchi last year. You obviously still had a guy like Kyle Hendricks, but Kyle Hendricks obviously not the same guy he once was. I think he's going to try to retire this offseason. I don't know what's going on there, but he's kind of more of a depth arm. Tyler Anderson, he had a solid year, but it's kind of more of a depth arm. They need to have that bona fide, the Garrett Crochet, essentially kind of what the Red Sox did this past offseason to kind of at least have an overall push in terms of like kind of where they want to be. Because the Angels, Ryan, they've actually the last couple of seasons kind of started really, really well. However, they can't have that long-term success specifically without a top of the line arm, right? So that's kind of something that they need. I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, it's kind of tough because obviously it's in division, but a guy like Framber Valdez, I just don't know specifically the Angels the front office essentially kind of wants to throw money out. I don't see that type of organization doing that. But I think it'll be very, very fascinating, right? Kind of pressuring a team like Seattle, a team like the Astros, a couple teams now that have kind of been in the playoffs the last couple of years and maybe opening up that overall eye for Artie Moreno. But I hope Kurt Suzuki does well. I just don't know about the rest of the overall team.
Yeah, you got to have a lot of patience and some thick skin if you're going to be the manager of the Los Angeles Angels or the Anaheim Angels, whatever the hell you want to call them. But yeah, I mean, still congratulations to Kurt Suzuki as he begins his first managerial position, and it's with a team that could really use a nice turnaround. And honestly, it'd be good to see the Angels have a good year for once. It's been a long time. Obviously, everybody would love to see Trout redeem himself in the postseason. The time's running out, really. He's going to be 34 or 35 next. I think he's going to be 35 next year,
Yeah.
if I'm not mistaken.
Yep.
So, it's now or never really for the Angels to really start showing signs of progress. And yeah, for a team that has a really good fan base, the fans do deserve better than what
I
they've
know a
been
couple
getting.
of Angel fans. I feel for them. I do.
Yeah, yeah. So Kurt Suzuki's the new manager of the Angels. The Orioles have hired Craig Albernaz. Um, uh, and Albernaz was with the Guardians. He was the
Yep.
bench coach for the Guardians for the past 2 seasons, and before that, he was with the Giants. He was a bullpen coach for them. So Albernaz going from the National League West to the AL Central to the AL East. He's going to be managing, obviously, in what is now a very stacked American League East division. So the Orioles obviously had a disappointing year this year.
Yep.
They finished under 500 after finishing the last 2 seasons over or 3 seasons over 500, including 2 playoff appearances in the past 2 years. The Orioles took a major step back this year, and they're kind of a question mark going into next season. You don't really know what you're going to get with them. A lot of guys had very disappointing years. Adley Rutschman had a terrible year this past season. Gunnar Henderson didn't do a whole lot. I mean, no one really did a whole lot. But the biggest problem with the Orioles was their pitching. It was horrible. And they really need to try and improve that rotation. I mean, there are a lot of free agent pitchers out there on the market this year.
Mhm.
And if I'm the Orioles, with this new ownership group, you got to be aggressive here. You got to try and at least sign at least 2 free
Yeah.
agent pitchers this offseason if you really want to get back into contention for 2026. So obviously, we've gone over some of the names. Zach Allen, Framber Valdez are just 2 off the top of my head. Mike King is another guy. So right then and there, try and at least sign 2. The Orioles need to really go hard at some of these pitchers. So Albernaz, he's got the talent, I think. But it really just depends on how the team does on the field. I mean, Albernaz, I'm sure, is going to be learning. This is his first managerial position in Major League Baseball. So, yeah, it really is just the Orioles, in the words of Forrest Gump, are like a box of chocolates. You don't know what you're going to get out of them for this upcoming season.
Yep.
So, Albernaz to the Orioles. Any thoughts on this move?
Kind of like the Angels, right? You're obviously bringing a guy in, but it's all about the production on the field. Ali Rutschman, one of the most disappointing players last year for sure.
Yeah.
After kind of what his career kind of worked out to be specifically. Gunnar Henderson, I thought Ryan was actually fairly solid for what they did, but it kind of just got overlooked kind of the way the overall season was for them this year. Obviously, it wasn't the kind of the numbers that we kind of anticipate, but they were obviously decent, not awful. Jackson Holiday, I thought was a little bit better this year than he was last year, but obviously he had some struggles in the second half. Brian Malcastle's obviously another piece there too. They obviously extended Samuel Patello, who is a very good catcher. They're kind of their upcoming catcher. So they obviously want to have a nucleus specifically when it comes to position players, but they really have to, like you mentioned, they really have to upgrade that starting rotation. And there's a lot of guys that are going to be out there, not only in the free agent market, but on the trade market as well too. Freddie Peralta, that could be a perfect type of name specifically for the Orioles, in which Freddie Peralta has proven and shown he's a bona fide ace. He's pitching kind of a market kind of similar to like a market kind of like Baltimore. Joe Ryan, that could be definitely another kind of name to look out for. So, even if the Orioles don't spend the money, at least go and attack specifically, because you look at the overall American League East, right? The Red Sox specifically won't be going anywhere. The Yankees obviously won't either. So if the Orioles obviously essentially want to compete to just obviously try to make the playoffs, they have to be able to improve more. Or I feel like it's just going to be kind of another repeat of kind of just being a very middling average type of team under by this new manager.
Yeah, I still think the Orioles have talent. I wouldn't want
Oh,
them
100%.
to
100%.
I wouldn't want them to think, if I'm the Orioles, I wouldn't want to think that, just because you had a bad year this year means that your contention window is closed.
No,
I still think they can fix this. I just think that, it was a mix of bad luck and a mix of just not doing much in the offseason. You got to do something. It goes to show that you got to make moves in the offseason. You can't just play cheap. You really got to be willing to spend some money. I mean, they were able to, like you said, make a trade a couple of years ago with Milwaukee to acquire Corbin Burns. That's something that they got to do again. They really have to.
I thought to this too, Ryan. I said, obviously after losing Corbin Burns, what's the overall rotation going to be like coming into this season? And granted, I think they had some guys potentially that had some promise. A guy like Kyle Bradish, I think has really good stuff. A guy like Dean Kramer, decent stuff. But these specifically are just kind of like twos and threes specifically at best. Sagano obviously was okay, right? They had some guys obviously that actually weren't awful, but it's kind of more of like journeyman or kind of just like guys that are kind of in the middle. They need to kind of have that. I'm even going to go Tara Scoble like, but kind of just that overall horse to kind of carry them over the top, because you can kind of see specifically this year a guy or two kind of goes down, then you kind of have to rely on some other guys, and it never kind of came to fruition at the end there.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, Albernaz joining the Baltimore Orioles. He's the new skipper there. The Minnesota Twins, in what I think is the most twinsiest Twins move you could possibly do, hired Derek Shelton to replace Rocco Baldelli. Shelton coming from the Pittsburgh Pirates, where he had no success whatsoever in terms of team success. The Pittsburgh Pirates were just dreadful. And honestly, he's coming to a team with a very similar roster to the Pittsburgh Pirates, except without Paul Skeens. And Shelton, I think he's a respected manager, but I really don't think this is going to do much for the Twins. The Twins are going to go through a long rebuild. They traded all their best players at the trade deadline this season. And I think Shelton's going to have a lot of patience with this team. This team is very young and inexperienced. The AL Central is a revolving door each year almost. So, there's maybe that to look forward to, that you never know when it's anybody's time. But the Twins have just not even haven't been the same team, obviously, since 2023. They were good in 23. They won the Central that year, made it to the postseason, and won a postseason series. But the Twins now, they're a shell of them. They're a shell of that team. Basically every single big player on that team, besides Royce Lewis, is gone. So it's going to be a long year for Minnesota. It's going to take a while, I think, for them to get back to contention. But maybe under the leadership of Shelton, maybe he's able to speed up the progress of that team. But that's if there's ever a move that epitomized what the Minnesota Twins are, that's the move, if you ask me. So what are your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, it's crazy how they actually downgraded specifically this overall hire. They might as well have just kept Rocco Baldelli and called it a day, right? I think they probably made this overall hire because they wanted kind of a new voice potentially in there, but it's essentially from pretty much kind of what I can gather specific on social media about Shelton, and obviously, granted, he was both with Pittsburgh, so obviously it was kind of the low market, situation. But I think it's just kind of a fill-in type of manager. Like you mentioned, Ryan, this is a team specifically that is going in complete rebuild. Joe Ryan is going to get traded this offseason. I think that's completely inevitable at this point in time. Lunky should be getting traded. Granted, hopefully to my Red Sox, but of course that's another story. But yeah, like you mentioned, I mean they have Trevor Larnach, who I think is a decent bat. A couple of decent bats as well. I mean, Byron Buxton, if he could actually stay on the field consistently, unfortunately, he just doesn't. Same with a guy like Royce Lewis, just never stays on the field consistently. Um, and then, of course, the rotation, right? I mean, Woods Richardson, decent stuff, but he's kind of more of a 3 and 4. And obviously, you have Ryan, but yeah, they need to definitely go in a full rebuild. Very Angels esque kind of in a way. And yeah, they might as well just should have kept Rocco, but it's what it is. We'll kind of obviously kind of give him kind of a chance, but I think there's many people out there that aren't expecting the Twins to completely, change really their win total. Essentially, kind of coming into what the season's going to be, after a move like this.
And finally, the last move that's been made so far is that the Nationals hired Blake Batura from the Tampa Bay Rays organization. And Batura, this one is pretty historic. He's the youngest managerial hire in more than 50 years. Batura is only 33 years old. He was born in 1992. Think about that. 1992, a 90s manager in Major League Baseball. It's pretty scary to think about. A guy who's as old as Aaron Judge is going to be
Hmm.
managing a baseball team for the 2026 Major League Baseball season. Batura coming from the Rays. He's the youngest manager since Frank Quilici, who was the manager of the Twins on July 7th, 1972. Quilici was 33 years, 27 days old. And when the Nationals open up next year, Batura will be 33 years, 7 months, and 19 days old. That's coming from Maria Torres and Brittany Giroli of the Athletic. Yeah, this is a pretty historic move. And for the Nationals are one of the youngest teams in Major League Baseball. And now they're going to be going even younger with a very young manager. This guy's not much older than his players. So, this is a gamble if you ask me. You're going with a very young guy to lead this young group of players. This guy could be playing Major League Baseball. He could be a teammate of these guys essentially, but he's going to be making the lineup part every day, and he's going to be making the in-game decisions instead. So this can either go really good, if you ask me, or it could go really bad. Sometimes, if it goes really well, then I think the players will, grow to respect him much more quickly and much more easily. But if it goes bad, I can see the players, saying, "Who the hell are you? You're only a few years older. You're not much older than me. You're washed up. You never made it to Major League Baseball." I don't know that. I really don't know. But like you said, it could be a battle of ego. It could turn into a battle of egos, possibly. I'm not saying it will. I'm not saying it will. All I'm saying is I think it can go either really good or really bad to hire somebody this young to lead a very young group of players who are scrappy and hungry and want to do well in Major League Baseball. So it's a coin flip if you ask me. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, no, as much as like I'm laughing specifically at the thinking about it, I do agree with you. I think it can go really either way. We don't really know specifically if he's had any major league experience also in the past, right? This is probably, if he has had some, I don't know if it's kind of come into this overall position, kind of leading a group of men like that, and it's a young group. Now the Nationals, I do think, have definitely a very good nucleus, essentially, of great young talent coming in. Guys like James Wood, guys like CJ Abrams. Um, they definitely, I would obviously love to see them hopefully kind of get another big piece, for their team. But, they obviously kind of have to start somewhere. And I think, getting some young guys in, I think, Ryan, it's going to work for them. I think, obviously you kind of want to have that guy that potentially that's had that massive experience, an older type of guy, but you kind of also do for kind of a younger group kind of have to kind of kind of gradually kind of go into this and kind of not like feed this overall type of team that really I do think has something good going for them. I do. I really they have to obviously get a couple more star pieces, um, to that team. But I do think that there is a direction that I'm kind of seeing with them. Now it's obviously it comes down to the guys that are going to be leading this overall team because if they get somebody that can actually lead this team, definitely next year I'm obviously not saying that they're going to be a playoff team, but I do think that they definitely will be a lot better than they were this year.
Actually, one of the more managerial hire that happened this year was Skip Schumacher got hired by the Texas Rangers
Yeah,
to replace Bruce
very good hire.
Bochy. I
Yeah,
think that's a good hire as well. Schumacher, he led a couple of young Marlins teams to some. I mean, the Marlins were bad, obviously, but actually, no, not. I mean, in 2023, the Marlins made the playoffs. So, I mean, Schumacher, I think, has the potential to do well with the Rangers this year. But of all the managerial hires that we reviewed, I would probably say Vitello with the Giants might have the best chance to have a good year this year out of all the teams, just because with the roster that he has, and I just think based on how you described Vitello, I think he has the potential to get to light a fire within these guys. Um, we'll see, but that I would say out of all of them, Vitello has the best chance to have the best. Has the chance to have the best season of all these guys, given the roster he has. What would you say?
I'm gonna go Schumacher with the
Schumacher.
Rangers. I think that the Rangers specifically. I mean, I think Bochy obviously was awesome in terms of kind of what he was able to do, but he's obviously very old, Ryan, and that's obviously not a knock on him. But I mean, Schumacher, I think, is a very good replacement for him. The Texas Rangers specifically have a very, very good roster, right? That is essentially kind of who's going to lead that roster. And I think that Schumacher did a very good job. Obviously, with the Marlins a couple of years ago, he obviously got the team to the playoffs a couple of years ago, for the first time in a long period of time. And I think that Schumacher could come in and kind of get this team kind of back to the playoffs after the last couple of years, failing to get there.
All right, so yeah, those are all the managerial hires that have gone on around Major League Baseball so far this offseason. There's still a few more vacant positions around the league, and we expect to see those filled relatively soon among the teams that are still looking for a manager, include the San Diego Padres. Mike Shildt announced his retirement recently. So we'll see where other guys go as the offseason rolls on. So that's that. And then we get into this Tariq Skubal situation, and it's sounding more and more likely that there could be a chance that he could be dealt this offseason. Ben, if you want to elaborate just a little bit more on this situation, we did discuss this a couple of episodes ago.
Yeah, so there is a report for those that obviously didn't hear about the report about Terry Scribble prior. Right now there's massive gaps essentially kind of between the Tigers and the Terry Scribble in terms of trying to find a common ground on a contract. And when it came to that overall split, um, there was a report out from John Heyman, who has been the person that's been kind of reading about this overall report, and essentially the numbers that they said about it, they could potentially be having a massive bridger gap than they originally once were, right? And that gap currently, where it started, I think was around. I'm trying to get it to. Okay, so I'm just reading right here. So the immense gap between Tigers and Terry Scuba reported here first is even bigger than resolved. So it turned out that the Tigers offered a year ago to Scuba was below 80 million for 4 years. Think about that for a quick sec. This is arguably the best pitcher in baseball. They offered him a year ago to Scuba, below 80 million for 4 years. It was reported here only originally to be less than this 170 million the Red Sox signed Garrett Crochet, right? And both guys specifically are kind of both at the top when it comes to the best pitcher in baseball. So I don't know, Ron. I mean, you obviously, if you're a Tiger fan out there, I think there's a lot of Tiger fans that I'm just looking at on social media right now that are just completely saying, sell the team, fold the franchise. We've had enough of this. Pay the man, which of course he should be. He's obviously the best pitcher. Okay, actually, Yeah, so I'm just kind of looking at the rest of it because I was trying to specifically see the rest of it here. It turned out to be less than half. This was recording from Evan Petzold of the Detroit Free Press. It was under 100 million. So my overall thought is,
Wait, under 100 million per year?
or so I'll kind of quickly go and recap what I was saying again. So this is from John Heyman. So the Tigers' offer to Yergo to Scuba was below 80 million for 4 years.
Okay.
It was only reported
Oh,
here originally to be less than the 170 million the Red Sox signed Garrett Crochet for, and it turned out to be less than half. That was reported from Evan Petzold of the Detroit Free Times. Reported it was under 100 million.
oh, okay. He wants that. So they offered him a 4-year, $80 million deals. That was it.
Correct.
Wow, under 100 million for Tariq Skubal.
So their contract offer is basically a middling. They're basically paying it like he's like a middling, which is just complete joke. It's a complete
Tigers are that. You know, we talked about this a couple of episodes ago. The Tigers, with the best pitcher in baseball. I mean, the fact that you're offering under $100 million for Tariq Skubal. It would be nice to see other teams at least try to give triple-digit million-dollar contracts.
This is what we're talking about when it comes to a team like the Dodgers. Saying, "Oh, this team's ruining baseball." Like granted, you can say specifically what you want to say about them. You could hate them. You could this and that, but they're obviously paying guys specifically. That's essentially kind of what they're doing. They can obviously blame other teams specifically for a guy like this, right? Paul Skeens, Pirates aren't going to pay him, right? That's obviously not going to happen. I'd be shocked, but that's a lower market type of team. And they just don't do that to their stars. The Tigers, there's legitimately no excuse. He's essentially one of their biggest names specifically, and I don't know how many years. And this is essentially kind of how you want to do it. The Red Sox got Garrett Crochet. I told myself specifically, okay, cool. You've got the ace. Sign him, please. Because you kind of see specifically what would happen on the market now. He would have gotten probably double essentially kind of what he got this past offseason. Obviously, kind of the way that he pitched. The Red Sox essentially got that contract extension pretty much locked up right away. That was a steal. The Tigers essentially kind of have to do essentially what the Red Sox did and just sign the guy long term because there are going to be names out there for this guy. There's legitimately, him, Joe Ryan, Freddie Peralta, but Tarek Skubal essentially, if he is really going to be available, and we asked about this, Ryan, last week. Do we really think Tarek Skubal is going to be out in the market? We kind of like, we don't know, but there's obviously a chance. I think now, if I had to put a ratio on it, I'm going to go 60% he goes and 40% he stays. I don't trust this organization to keep.
Yeah, I agree with you on that assumption, 60-40.
I think Steve Cohen is licking at his chops the more and more that he reads this because the New York Mets essentially had one of the biggest collapses this past offseason, and no better way to repay that franchise essentially kind of for what the pitching that they had to essentially trade for the best pitcher in baseball. Plus, I do think that they have the best trade capital. Essentially, I think I was reading in a Yankee podcast, obviously kind of talking about the Mets, but I think that there's a Yankee proposal essentially kind of out there. It would kind of be the equivalent of the Yankees trading for Skubal. Obviously, this is playing hypotheticals, but Spencer Jones, Luis Hill, Clark Schmidt, and Jason Dominguez. Those would be like four essential guys that the Yankees essentially granted would have to kind of do for a guy like Tarek Skubal. And granted, that essentially kind of what it should be, but the New York Mets essentially kind of they're lucky as it happens.
I mean, that deal that you just laid out for me, I'd honestly pull the trigger if I'm the Yankees on that.
They should. They all, any team specifically should. I mean, this is Tarek Skubal we're talking about.
He's going to win in all likelihood. He's going to win back-to-back Cy Youngs. So I mean, he only helps out a team wherever he ends up. But yeah, I mean, based on the way things are going in Detroit, I think it's becoming less and less likely he returns after a 2026 at least, but it could be before that. We'll see if the Tigers move on from him this offseason or at the trade deadline. But regardless, it's looking less and less likely that Tariq Skubal is going to be with the Tigers much longer. And if they lose Tariq Skubal, excuse me, thank you. If the Tigers lose Tariq Skubal, then the Tigers are a much inferior team right away. They're not the same team, so that would be detrimental. And right now, it sounds like the Tigers are more concerned about their financial issues rather than winning a World Series. If they're not willing to at least bite the bullet and at least try and bring a championship back, doesn't sound like they're that interested in going for $100 million with Tariq Skubal, which I think this is inexcusable. If you ask me, they got it. You can't do this to the fan base. This fan base had suffered long enough, and now you're in danger of closing your contention window within 2 years. So it's inexcusable.
And trust me, Tiger fans, I know the feeling in terms of not paying guys or not. I know this feeling, but just don't do it. It's not essentially kind of what you want to do. So for their fan base, I hope it gets it done.
All right. Well, we'll see where Skubal ends up relatively sooner rather than later. Will he be with the Tigers come spring training? We'll have to wait and see. Mm-hmm. So that's a soap opera to keep an eye out on. And lastly, we'll review the 2025 World Series.
All right.
The World Series is all knotted up, all tied up at 3 games apiece. If the Blue Jays took the first game, the Dodgers took games 2 and 3. The Blue Jays won games 4 and 5, and the Dodgers avoided elimination last night in Game 6 to force a Game 7 in Toronto tonight at the Rogers Center. It's the first World Series Game 7 since 2019 between the Astros and the Nationals. And this has been a pretty back-and-forth World Series for the most part. The Blue Jays made a statement in Game 1. They blew out the Dodgers, I believe, 10-4 in that game, or 10-4.
Yeah, it was.
They did it in the way that they've done all year long, putting together a classic rally inning in the bottom of the 6th inning. I think they scored 9 runs in the bottom of the 6th inning, capped off by an Addison Barger grand slam. Game 2, another masterclass performance by Yoshinobu Yamamoto, a complete game. As the Dodgers won Game 2 by the score, I think 5-1. I think that was
3-1.
Oh, 3-1 in Game 2.
Yep.
Game 3, a repeat of Game 3 of 2018. 18 innings of pure madness. This game would never end. This was just wild, back and forth.
Yep.
Shohei Ohtani had probably, you thought Ohtani's game against the Brewers was something. This was something as well. Ohtani reached base 9 freaking times in Game 3. 5 of them via the intentional. Well, 4 were intentional walk. 1 was an unintentional intentional walk. But he had 2 home runs as well. And like I said, this game just went on and on and on. And in the end, a familiar face hit a walk-off home run. Reminiscent from last year. Freddie Freeman with a dramatic 18th inning walk-off home run to give the Dodgers a 2-1 series lead in the World Series. Not as dramatic as a home run as last year's walk-off grand slam. That's probably going to be the I think the grand slam is going to go down as the most dramatic hit of his career, no matter what.
Definitely.
Yeah, but this was also memorable. This might go down as maybe a top 3 moment for Freeman personally, if depending on how
it's crazy because Freddie had so many great moments in Atlanta, but I think when you look back on his career, it's going to be a lot with the Dodgers, kind of more than the Braves.
Well, it's amazing for a guy who was just breaking down in tears about leaving Atlanta.
Yeah,
and he was unsure about being a Dodger. Boy, has he made LA feel at home, feel at home for him. I think he's done just fine for the Dodgers.
I think
he's done fine. I think he's done fine.
Yeah.
So the Dodgers took the 2-1 series lead in Game 3, but then the Blue Jays answered back in Game 4. They won that game by the score of 6-2, I think, in Game 4. And then in Game 5. Trey Savage shoved it up the Dodgers' rear ends. What a performance that was. Yeah. Savage, I think, went 7 innings, gave up just 1 run, a home run to Kike Hernandez, and struck out 12 Dodgers. 12 Dodgers he struck out. And Savage, I think, became the first rookie in World Series history to record a 10-plus strikeout game, if I'm not mistaken.
It's like Cam Schlittler essentially if the the Yankees in the World Series stage of like complete shoving dominance to go in with a 2-2 series tied. Remember guys, Trey Savage, he started his overall season in single A. He started his season in single A baseball, and then he got the chance to pitch in Game 5 at LA and completely shoving a very, very good Dodgers lineup. I mean, sports specifically in baseball is just such a crazy whirlwind of an overall sport. And you just get the overall moment for a guy like him to go out and just do what he did. That was incredible. And plus, too, you never know because we're going to be talking about Game 7, but a lot of these names, folks, that obviously you guys are listening to as of right now, somebody could be a hero tonight. And of course, one of these names, obviously, we're talking about could be doing it. So we'll see.
Yeah, so Savage, like I said, youngest pitcher in baseball history to record 10-plus strikeouts in a World Series game. He had 12, like I mentioned. That's the record now. So
Yeah.
he set the new record. And what an amazing performance from Savage. And really, like you said, he started this season out in a single A, struck out 10 Yankees in the division series, and now 12 Dodgers in the World Series. Not bad, not a bad resume already. He can already retire after this season. He already did more in one season than some guys do in their whole career.
Yeah.
Just impressive stuff. And then we get to last night, Game 6 in Toronto. It was a match between Kevin Gausman and Yoshinobu Yamamoto. Both pitchers, for the most part, pitched pretty well. Gausman was hit a little bit around in the third inning. The Dodgers put up a 3 spot on him. That's the first time the Dodgers have had a 3-run inning this entire freaking World Series.
Yeah.
The Dodger offense really has been silent, and really a major culprit has been Mookie Betts, who prior to last night was just terrible all series long. But Mookie finally woke up from this horrible slump with a 2-run single in the third inning,
which was pivotal. Granted, obviously, the way the ending happened, so we'll get to it.
And Betts obviously made it very clear. He knew he was struggling, and he said, "I've just been flat out terrible." After Game 5. So that was a huge hit for Betts and a huge hit for the Dodgers. They needed all those runs, obviously. The Blue Jays got on the board in the bottom of the third inning, and it was 3-1 after that. And then we got to the bottom of the ninth inning. The Dodgers were still leading 3-1. Roki Sasaki was on the mound, and the Blue Jays obviously were trying him out to come back. They were trying to revisit history of 32 years ago with Joe Carter walking it off. The Blue Jays were obviously going to try and walk off the World Series, and it looked like they were on the verge of doing that. Sasaki hit Alejandro Kirk with a pitch to start things off, and then the next guy,
Barger.
Barger singled. And Barger hit a booming fly ball to left center field that actually got caught underneath the left center field wall. It got jammed in there. The Blue Jays were just running around the bases. They didn't know whether or not it was going to be called. Initially, it looked like it wasn't going to be called, and actually Barger ran all the way around home plate, but the umpires eventually sent him back to second. It was ruled a ground rule double. So then Roberts came out, and he took a gamble here. He brought in Tyler Glasnow, his best starter, to try and just save the Dodgers season. So the Blue Jays had runners on second and third with nobody out. And the winning run came to the plate first in the form of Ernie Clement, who has had a tremendous postseason. But Clement did something that I've been very critical of the Yankees of. He swung at the first pitch.
Yep.
You're facing a reliever. I understand you're excited. I understand you have a chance to be a World Series hero. You got the juices flowing in there. So I understand the excitement. But you got to do a better job of containing your excitement. I understand the World Series is so close, you can taste it. He was licking his chops. He was trying to be a hero. He was trying to do too much. But unfortunately, he screwed himself, and he just hit a lazy infield pop-up to Freddie Freeman for the first out. You got to do a better job of controlling your emotions. I understand the moment. I understand the magnitude. But you got to slow down your heartbeat, and you got to just at least tie the game. At least do that. Don't worry about trying to get.
A sac fly, sacrifice fly, folks. When they talk about sac flies, they're one of the most underrated things to have. But and Ryan, I mean, I'll let you continue because obviously you're cooking right there. So I'll keep the rest of my thoughts after.
So Clement popped up. That was the first out. So both runners obviously had to stay put where they were. And then came Andre Jimenez. Again, first and second, 1 out. Jimenez, he took a couple of pitches and then he hit a soft liner to a left field to Kike Hernandez. When he hit the ball, I thought initially, oh, that might drop for a single. But
Mhm.
Hernandez actually got a good jump on it. Hernandez said that he actually didn't see the ball coming at him. But I
He
don't
said
know if
something about like in the lights, but I don't know.
But regardless, he was running in the right direction. Maybe he lost it for a split second. Honestly,
Yeah.
it might have just gotten blinded by the lights. But he got a good jump on it though, and
Mhm.
he went right towards it and he made the catch. It wasn't a hard play, but Barger got too greedy. He got too far off of second base. Hernandez heads up. He continued
Yeah.
to run and just throw right to second base, and the game ended with a double play. The score was you do the score that was a 7-4 double play. I think that
And
goes.
one play really quickly, Ryan, by Miguel Rojas. That overall,
Yeah,
because you just never know, right? If Rojas does not scoop that ball, it's still second and third with 2 outs. And this is kind of now where I don't know if obviously you're done yet, specifically in terms of how
you
you,
can you can touch on this.
but I'm kind of ready to kind of unleash kind of what I'm about to say because
Go ahead.
yes, the Barger play, I saw countless people on social media kind of saying, "Well, that's the rule. Like, that was a rule specifically that they broke." And I mean, listen, granted. The Blue Jays and Ryan, you told me off the air last night. The Blue Jays lost themselves this game to themselves, in which they haven't really been doing a lot in this postseason. They've been able to kind of actually do the complete opposite of what they've been doing and be able to take advantage of what other teams are kind of giving to them. Let's kind of look back to the bottom ninth inning. The Alejandro Kirk hit by pitch. That was an 0-2 pitch that Roki Sasaki threw. That was a complete awful pitch that he had. So essentially, that's gift number one. Gift number two was it was still second and third. It was still nobody out. It's one thing specifically if I hear Blue Jay fans or this and that, which I don't think a lot of them actually were complaining about, but like let's kind of play hypotheticals because I have two sides to this. If Barger obviously hits that double, right? It's still a 1-run game. And then obviously Clement hits that pop up, that's 1 out. And then the next one up with Enrique Hernandez, that ball is so shallow. Kike has a great arm. That was a shallow fly ball. He's not getting the home plate. I mean, yeah, you could maybe test that potentially for the tie and run. There's no things. The biggest part to this overall inning, Ryan, that you didn't actually mention, but I obviously want to mention, you did not get George Springer up at all in the bottom of the ninth inning, and it's because Addison Barger, and I don't want to blame obviously Addison Barger because he took all the accountability after the game. I feel for him. But what's the one rule in baseball? To never be the last out on the base pass, not only for an inning ender, but for a World Series game ender, essentially kind of after what the Dodgers handed to you early part of the inning. So you can say, well, it could have changed. They had the moment granted, but the Blue Jays at the second half specifically of that inning completely kind of changed the narratives in terms of they shouldn't have won that game. Because essentially kind of if they did, the Blue Jays were kind of a team you can kind of see essentially all year that they were making up for the other team's mistakes. In this case, they didn't.
Yeah, I mean, you hit the nail on the head right there. And like I said, I really just think it boiled down to the fact that the Blue Jays got too excited. They they
They,
they
they literally probably saw that the World Series trophy is ready. And listen, Ryan, I'm not gonna lie. I thought that one of those guys was gonna tie that. I'm
Me
not
too.
gonna lie. With the way that the Blue Jays were kind of being a team of the team of destiny, they were fighting essentially, and hearing the Joe Carter stuff, Sasaki obviously was wild. I at least thought this game, and I was talking obviously the playback stream. I was obviously with my guys last night, and shout out to them. It was obviously a fun stream. We'll be back tonight for Game 7, so make sure obviously to watch it with us. It's going to be probably even more chaotic than it was last night. But we were talking all about essentially kind of what happened after the game was over because all we just did was this. We essentially were just kind of in complete shell shock in terms of if Barger essentially could just stay at second base, you got to give Springer. You have to give Springer a chance.
Yeah,
It's kind of what he did against the Mariners last round. they were kind of in that same situation where like they were kind of putting the traffic out there, and it's kind of like you just kind of took the fire out, and now it's like we go to game 7 now, right? It's kind of like both teams kind of had their overall like their moment, and now it's kind of like, well, now this is it. There's no tomorrow. This is kind of essentially all for the marbles. We got November baseball run, which I don't know if we expected to start coming into the season. But man, like I said, to start this show, we get a treat on Halloween weekend to see one game in November for baseball against two teams that have deserved to be there: Team of Destiny and the Toronto Blue Jays, and a team obviously that's trying to repeat for the first time in forever as World Series champion, the Dodgers. And now, Ryan, we get the chance to see Shohei Ohtani on the big stage, try to do his thing to start. And obviously, you have the Unk and Mad Max Scherzer being the opposite end. And now it's kind of, I think Derek Jeter and A-Rod and all that Fox Sport broadcast, also in the post game yesterday, they basically said that it's kind of like playing MLB The Show in terms of like you could just insert a guy in the bullpen. It could just be, Roki or, Clayton Kershaw. We just don't know tonight. And I think that's what makes this game so exciting is that you just do not know what's going to happen. And I just think for both of us fans, like we have no dog in the fight. So we're just going to obviously watch and have a great time.
Yeah, well, like you mentioned, Scherzer is on the mound for the Blue Jays tonight. Future Hall of Famer going at it. No pitcher has been officially announced yet for the Dodgers as of yet, but in all likelihood, it's probably going to be Ohtani, I would assume, going tonight for the Dodgers in the beginning of Game 7.
Yeah.
This game, I think, is going to be a cluster. You know what? I think it's just going to be. I could see this getting out of hand early for both teams.
Yeah.
And it's all hands on deck. Yep. Now because there's only one more game. This is it. There's no tomorrow, like you mentioned. Everybody is available tonight. I don't care who you are. It could be Yamamoto, for God's sake. I know he pitched. Yeah, I know he pitched yesterday, but what's one more day? We've seen teams do that before in the past. And Yamamoto even stated, "Hey, I'm available for Game 3 if you needed me, depending on how long that game is going."
He was up in Game 3 also.
So he could make an appearance tonight if need be.
Gausman, same thing.
Gausman, same thing for the Blue Jays. So yeah, it can really. This is a major question mark. No, I don't know if anybody has the advantage necessarily. I guess maybe the Dodgers because the way they won last night.
This is the thing, Ryan, that people want to tell me, right? So people are going to say, well, the Dodgers won last night. They have the momentum. Have we seen what the Toronto Blue Jays have been doing the whole entire postseason? Every single time that you feel like that their season is on the bump, they completely play their best ball. Look at what happened essentially with the Seattle Mariners. They were down 2-0 in that ALCS, and they came back not only to tie that series, but then they were down 3-2. George Springer ties it. They win it in a Game 7. Who knows? Who knows? Because maybe the Blue Jays essentially kind of have that break in the opposite end tonight, and we could be just kind of looking about like Game 6 was nothing. So this is essentially kind of what hypotheticals essentially kind of can mean, because this what didn't happen in Game 7. If this is essentially kind of what happened in Game 7, I've been like, man, that's just kind of the worst way. But this leading into a Game 7 in which you have now the chaotic of both sides.
Yeah. Like you mentioned, the Blue Jays have been the most resilient team in Major League Baseball all year. I mean, and also the fact that they lost just an absolute backbreaking and heartbreaking Game 3.
That's it, too. Yeah.
And they came back and they won the next 2 games at Dodger Stadium. They took 2 out of 3 in LA. Not many teams have been able to do that. They handed the Dodgers back-to-back postseason losses at Dodger Stadium for the first time since 2023, when the Diamondbacks won the first 2 games of the NLDS against them that year. So, I mean, yeah, you can make an argument that the Dodgers gained a little bit of momentum, but I said last week that I picked the Blue Jays to win the World Series. I said in 6 games. I was wrong on that part, but I'm sticking with my prediction. I'm sticking with the Blue Jays winning the World Series. They're playing at the Rogers Center, which has been one of the toughest places to play for an opposing team all year. Granted, the Dodgers have won 2 out of the 3 games that have been played at the Rogers Center this World Series, but still, I think that the Blue Jays. I think that's a huge advantage to be playing at home in front of that crowd. It only takes, one big inning for the game to turn upside down. So I think this is going to be a close game. I think this is going to be back and forth. I could see this potentially going to extra innings again if it does get that far. Um, but yeah, I'm sticking with my gut. I'm going to say the Blue Jays win the World Series tonight.
I'm changing my pick. I thought that if the Dodgers were going to win the World Series, like they said beforehand, they were going to win in 6 games. And I think looking at this overall series, both teams, of course, have been playing fairly decent ball. But I'm taking specifically the team that has faced the resilient bounce back at the best, and that's been the Toronto Blue Jays. And who is your preseason MVP?
Vladdy.
My pick is he's going to have the moment, and the walk-off homer is going to happen.
I think no team has walked off a World Series since the Diamondbacks did it against the Yankees in 2001. Luis Gonzalez's hit against Mariano Rivera in Game 7 was the last time a World Series ended in a walk-off.
I kind of have an interesting feeling that Vladdy is going to hit a walk-off to. I mean, either him or George Springer, and legitimately, that place in Toronto is going to shake.
I think I agree with you. I think the Dodgers are going to bring a one-run lead into the bottom half of whatever it is, the 9th inning, the 10th inning, whatever it may be.
They're going to repay from last night.
I think the Dodgers are going to have the lead late in the game. I think the Dodgers are going to have the lead late in the game. I don't know who it's going to be on the mounds. It could be Sasaki. It could be Kershaw. I don't know who's on it. The Dodgers don't really have, a set. It's mostly been Sasaki. He's been their closer mostly for this postseason. Maybe Trinan. I don't know. But regardless, I don't know if they want to do Trinan anymore. He's had a time. He's not. This is not the Blake Trinan from last year. Last year was
definitely not.
No. This is not the same Dodger team from last year. They're an inferior. This is an inferior Dodger team compared to last year, but still, they're good. You shouldn't take them lightly. Oh. But the Dodgers, I think, are going to take a late inning lead. I think they're going to go into the bottom half of one of the late innings, and I do think it's either going to be Vladdy, Bo Bichette, or Springer who's going to deliver the walk-off heroics. I'm leaning towards Vladdy too. Just the way that he's been all postseason long, he's been almost on God mode. It's been ridiculous. The guy
is a couple pitches. There was the double last night, Ryan, and obviously, I assume that of course you watched the majority of the game, but it was a perfect pitch that Yamamoto threw, and the way that Vladdy's locked in, not only he got a double and essentially kind of flicked that ball, but he got the barrel on that ball. And I essentially was telling my buddies last night on the stream, I said, you know how hard that is to not only hit that ball but get it on the barrel. That's when you know a guy is locked in like that.
Yeah. I think Vladdy gives the Blue. I think Vladdy has his Joe Carter moment. I could see
that would be chills, man. I don't even like Toronto's obviously in our division. That would be insanely chills. Like I can't even hate it if obviously that happened tonight.
Yeah, Dodgers have had. I think the Dodgers, the way they've walked off the World Series back-to-back year, have had walk-off wins in the World Series in back-to-back years. I just think that, the way that things have been going, I just got that funny feeling inside that the Blue Jays have one more magical inning. I just think the Blue Jays are the team, the way that they've been this year. I just think it's there.
I can't even imagine the two teams, the fan bases that they're going through, like at this point in time right now. And if this gets to extra innings, kind of just what they have to kind of go through, because this is essentially just kind of it, right? I know Game 7s, obviously playing Toronto, and this is obviously in hockey, but playing the Maple Leafs, we had to go to overtime in the pit in my stomach. Of course, this is kind of a different way, but hockey playoffs, Ryan, it's not for the weak. And essentially, the roar that I had when David Pastrnak scored against that Toronto team in Game 7 was nothing short of insanity, because Game 7 just kind of bring that energy. And I think that we just hope, Ryan, from a neutral perspective of things, we got a good game tonight. That's the biggest thing.
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't know if I would necessarily call myself neutral. I mean, I'm picking the Blue Jays to win, but inside I'm actually
in there though.
But inside I'm actually kind of leaning. Even this is one of the few times I would ever do this. When I'm leaning, I'm hoping. I feel a little more relief if the Dodgers repeated rather than the Blue Jays, because I really don't like the Blue Jays as a Yankee fan. I can't stand Schneider. I can't stand Vladdy. I can't stand the Blue Jays.
Well, I mean, you could always have that knock too if like they win, like, well, you lost the World Series champions. I
Yeah, just so I
don't
can.
know how you feel like about that kind of like gimmick either too, but
I don't know. I
um,
just hate the Blue Jays because they're a division rival and they've trash talked the Yankees for years now.
I
Like
see.
that's really why I don't like them. But
You also would have to give credit too. Credits too. I mean,
oh, I've given the Blue Jays immense credit this year. I've said I'm jealous of them.
I was wrong about them. I mean, if you told me that they're playing Game 7 in the World Series before the season, I would have called you nuts. But here we are. What do I know?
Hmm
So,
So yeah, it's either going to be the end of a very long drought or it's going to be history with repeat World Series winners for the first time in well over 20 years.
wow.
So
I was going to ask you who was the last team to repeat because I don't remember.
no, well, the Yankees were the last team to do it overall from their three-peat from '98 to 2000. But do you know the last National League team to do it?
No.
75 to 76 Cincinnati Reds, the Big Red Machine,
Oh, I,
beating the Red Sox in
I knew that.
'75 and the Yankees in '76.
Well, yeah. Well, yeah, of course. Well,
Beat our team.
oh man. But
But
how about this really quickly, Ryan, before we call it a show? And this has been a great show. Who would be your World Series MVP?
Vladdy,
Vladdy?
Vladdy. Either him or actually,
Well, how about
yeah.
let's do it from both sides per se. If the Dodgers win the World Series, who's your MVP?
All right, I go Vladdy for the Blue Jays. The Dodgers. I mean, the Dodgers as a team have not really done. I mean, I'd probably have to go Ohtani for the Dodgers.
Okay.
Because the Dodgers, I mean, Ohtani was unbelievable the first three games. He cooled off a little bit in games 4 and 5. He did hit a little bit in game 6. But if you look elsewhere around the Dodger lineup, not many guys have done much. It's the Dodgers have an ice cold really as an offense for most of this series.
So for me, I'm going to go with Yamamoto as my MVP because
That's
without him specifically, the Dodgers have not really pitched well as a starting rotation against this Blue Jays lineup, but he is really the only guy that's been able to kind of stymie specifically the Blue Jays bats. And I think specifically if it wasn't without Yamamoto, this series wouldn't be going to Game 7. So I think that Yamamoto would be my World Series pick as my MVP. Granted, of course, if Ohtani goes 7, 8 innings, wouldn't shock me at all, but obviously, that happens in a couple homers. It would obviously be Ohtani, but as of right now, it's going for me. It's going to be Yamamoto, and then my UConn guy would be my MVP of the Blue Jays as George Springer. Yeah, I think kind of with what he had to battle with the injuries, and of course, kind of bouncing back. Game 7 is like Springer magic. Like he obviously did this as an Astro against the Dodgers in 2017. Had a couple big hits, if you remember. Vladdy obviously might have the moment tonight, but I think Springer would be my MVP. I don't know, but we'll see. We'll see.
So yeah, that's going to do it for this episode of Heading for the Cycle. That was episode number 89. We're 11 episodes away from 100 next season, so that'll be something. But yeah, thank you everybody for tuning into this episode. And it all comes down to tonight. One team is going to be crowned world champs. Will it be the Dodgers for the second year in a row, or will it be the Blue Jays for the first time since 1993? Tune in to find out. 8 o'clock, Game 7.
Really quickly, for those specifically that are watching, we will be having a breaking news quick short video, either me or Ryan tonight, in terms of who obviously wins it. We'll obviously kind of recap kind of together specifically next week for kind of our last finale, specifically about talking baseball in terms of regular season games. And then, of course, make sure, of course, to watch me and others tonight on the playback stream for Game 7. We'll get all the reactions, specifically starting pregame around 7:45-ish, and obviously kind of giving your guys post-game. Brian, I don't know if you get the chance to come in or not, but if you get the chance to, it should be a lot of fun, and it's going to be electric. So make sure, of course, to join really quickly as my last final thoughts of the show.
All right, well, enjoy tonight, and we'll see you.
See you guys.